Okay, here is June 2014. This is question 36 and 37. So 36 says, an animal shelter spends $2.35 per day to care for each cat and $5.50 per day to care for each dog. Pat noticed that the shelter spent $89.50 caring for cats and dogs on Wednesday. So it says, write an equation to represent the possible numbers of cats and dogs that could have been at the shelter on Wednesday. So since we have to write an equation, we have to start with our let statements. So I'm going to start just by saying let C equal the number of cats and let D equal the number of dogs. So our equation is going to have to deal with the cost of a cat, the cost of a dog, and the total. So since it deals with money, we have to remember that cost times your quantity will equal your total. So the cost of a cat is $2.35. So that's going to be part of our equation, $2.35, and that is going to be multiplying the number of cats, which in this case we don't know, but we said was C. Now we have to add the cost of a dog, which they told us was $5.50, and we need to multiply $5.50 by how many dogs we have, which we don't know, and we're representing by the letter D. And this all equals the total, which they told us was $89.50. So that is your equation. Okay. Pat said that there might have been 8 cats and 14 dogs at the shelter on Wednesday. Are Pat's numbers possible? Use your equation to justify your answer. So we're going to do basically a check, and we're going to substitute 8 in for C and 14 in for D. So what we'll have is 2.35 times 8, which is the number of cats, plus 550 times the number of dogs, they said was 14, and it will all equal $89.50. So we need to see if this is true. So when you multiply and add, you'll end up with 95.80 equals 89.50. But since these are not equal, that means that Pat's numbers are not possible. So clearly there were not 8 cats and 14 dogs. Okay, the last part of this question, it says later, Pat found a record showing that there were a total of 22 cats and dogs at the shelter on Wednesday. How many cats were at the shelter on Wednesday is the question. Okay, so now that we have this new information, that there is a total of 22 cats and dogs, well, that means that we have a new equation, and it's going to say that C, which is the number of cats, plus D, the number of dogs, will equal a total of 22. Okay, so they want to know how many cats were at the shelter. So what we need to do is get our letter D alone. So to do that, we're going to subtract C from both sides, and our equation is going to say D equals 22 minus C. Now we're going to use the substitution method. And what we're going to do is take this 22 minus C and substitute it into our first equation in for the letter D, so that we end up solving for C. Okay, so what I'm going to do is erase some things over here. Okay. So now what we're going to do is start with our original equation, 2.35C plus 5.5. Instead of the letter D, remember we're substituting in 22 minus C, and it should all equal 89.50. Okay, so now we're going to have 2.35C plus, now we have to distribute, and we'll end up with 121 minus 5.5C equals 89.5. And we can combine like terms, and when we combine like terms, we'll have negative 3.15C plus 121 equals 89.5. Now we have to subtract 121 so that we can get C alone. Bring it up here. And we'll end up with negative 3.15C equals negative 31.5. Divide by negative 3.15 to get C completely alone, and we'll end up with C equals 10. So that means that there were 10 cats. Okay. 37, which is the last question in this exam. And this is from part 4. So part 4 questions are worth 6 points. So this is important that we can get this question right. Okay, so it says a company is considering building a manufacturing plant. They determine the weekly production cost at site A to be the formula A of x equals 3x squared, while the production cost at site B is B of x equals 8x plus 3, where x represents the number of products in hundreds and A of x and B of x are the production costs in hundreds of dollars. Okay, so the nice thing is they already labeled your axes for you, so they have the number of products in hundreds, which is your x, and the cost, hundreds of dollars, as your y. So it tells you to graph the production cost functions on the set of axes below and label them as site A and site B. So what you should do is you should type these equations into your graphing calculators and look at the table before you can plot your points. So let's call this A and this B. So site A, I can already tell, is going to be a quadratic. So it's going to be a parabola because it's 3x squared. That squared tells me it's a parabola. Where B, 8x plus 3, is going to be just a linear equation. It's going to be a straight line. So when I type in my A, what I end up getting is when x is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, my y values are 0, 3, 12, 27, and 48. Okay, so I can plot those points now, and let's see, when x is 0, y is 0, so right there. When x is 1, and if you notice, they go 5 units over before they do a 1. So just be careful, it's not the next box over like you're used to. And let's just make sure what they're counting by in the y. So in the y, they are counting by 2's, which means here is x of 1, but your y of 3 is really right about there. Okay, so now when x is 2, your y is going to be 12, so right about there. And when x is 3, your y is 27, so that should be about there. It's tricky with this. And when x is 4, your y is 48, so that is roughly there. Okay, so although it may not look like a parabola because you're only seeing one side of it, it really continues on like the other way, but we're just going to graph just what we see. Okay, and this is our A. That is site A, and we'll call it A of x. Okay, so now B, if we look at B, okay, so 8x plus 3. so let's do the same points. Let's use when x is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the reason I know to use these values is because, look, there's only a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4 on my graph. I'm not going to go on to 5, and I'm not going to see the negative values. So I'm just going to put the points that I know. Okay, so when x is 0, my y value will be 3. When x is 1, my y value will be 11. Oops. And when x is 2, my y value will be 19. When x is 3, my y value will be 27. And when x is 4, my y value should be, let's see, 35. Okay, so if we look just at our tables alone, we have a point of intersection. They should intersect at the point 327. So let's see what our graph will look like. So if we start at when x is 0, y is 3, it's about there. When x is 1, y is 11. When x is 2, y is 19. Right about there. When x is 3, y is 27. So I'm just going to do a big dot there. When x is 4, y is 35. So let's see, right about roughly, I guess, there. Okay, so with this, we should have this straight line, and this is going to be our function b of x. Okay, so that is actually all you have to do for the first part of this question. Now, the next part of this question, it says, state the positive value or values of x for which the production cost at the two sites are equal, and explain how you determined your answer. Well, when x is equal to 3, that's where the two sites are equal. That's where the two graphs intersect. So this really stands for 300 products. Because remember, it's in hundreds. That's what it told us. Okay, so explain how you determined your answer. Well, at this point, the two graphs intersect at the point 327. So that's how we know that these two sites are equal. That's where they intersect. Okay, so the last part of this question, it says, if the company plans on manufacturing 200 products per week, so remember at 200 products, that's when our x value is 2, which site should they use? Okay, so if we go back to our graph, okay, so at 2, we're looking right here. Okay, so at A, they would only have 12 for the cost in hundreds of dollars, so $1,200. And at B, they would have 19, which is $1,900. So if you look back to the actual question, it tells us that this is the production cost. So it's how much the company has to pay. So you would want the cheaper option. In this case, A is cheaper. So back to the question, which site should they use at 200 products? So they should use site A because it will cost less money. Okay, so at A, it's going to cost them $1,200 versus at site B, it costs them $1,900. So this is why we really want to read the question. be sure to what it's asking.